Greetings everyone. I decided to do this before I rush off into the heat and possible major thunderstorm. At this moment I am dealing with knives going through my neck. I can barely able to breathe, but I'm going to proceed. This is something that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. So I shall go on while the other half is gone, as usual. 30 years ago today, I was in the first of 3 drug rehabs. Now some may ask, so what? That's 30 years ago. Well, if I had not been in the drug rehab, I might not be here now. If you've not gone through a recovery or addiction, you really don't know what's going on, or what we have to go through to get clean and sober and stay that way. I still have to work my program every day, and right now I'm physically doing this alone, but not by choice. Let me introduce you with the cast of characters. John was my former roommate, on and off, back in California, and we were friends for several years. Kathy was my ex-girlfriend, and the earthquake into that. Actually, she's more like a party animal, and we did everything together. That's another story. Turney is my homeless friend. When I was homeless 6.5 months, and I had made a couple of videos on him. I had been working on a book on my life story as a Beatles fan and how they intertwine with the 4 guys. And this, what I'm going to read, is from the book. Also, I had been keeping a personal diary, daily diary, and thankfully I did, because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. Background real quick. In November of '87, I was living in Hollywood. It was the best of times and the worst of times. My once tame, fun apartment has suddenly become a crack house. Then in November, I nearly lost everything, and what I had was in storage for 6.5 months. So we started at that point on June 1st of '88. I finally found a place and ended up with a Filipino family in Van Nuys, California, and they became my longest roommates in the 12 years I lived in Los Angeles. Okay, here we go. So I've just gotten off the street on June 1st. There are no words I can come up with to describe how happy and relieved I was after the last 7 months. I was more than tired of those damn storage rooms and having no place to go home. I have to make sure that I never repeat my cocaine addict experience in Hollywood, and make sure I don't be homeless again. I've been fighting that for 30 years. I'm still fighting. Twice in 2 years was more than enough. After not seeing most of my items in the storage room for months, I'd forgotten how much I had. After weeks of organizing, I was settled in again. The most upsetting thing was realizing how much my Beatle collection had disappeared. Many tapes, photos, posters had come up missing. At first, this made me upset. Then reality hit. I could have literally lost everything, and I had death threats on me in Hollywood and by other people. If you deal with crack cocaine or drugs, that's you're playing a dangerous game. Remember back in January '77, I moved to LA for 6 months, I believe, and I said I'd never move back. And I definitely wouldn't back to San Fernando Valley. Well, I never say never, because I've learned that 90% of the time I say never, they end up happening. Thankfully this time it worked out okay though. On June the 7th, I spent the night with Kathy, and she introduced me to her friend named Turney. My first reaction to him was he was weird, homeless, smelly, hippie, and a fellow Beatles fan. He was worse than I am when he came to living back in the 60s and 70s. I was soon to discover that he'd been homeless for 12 years. His parents had literally thrown him away as a little kid in Chicago and treated him like crap, and sadly parents are still doing it today. There was about 2,000 or more kids living under the Hollywood freeway. Well, that's left. We can't be treating our kids this way. That night, the three of us got turned on to mushrooms, and I felt kind of mellow. And in a few months, Turney and I become friends. 3 weeks after moving in, I had a yard sale in front of my apartment, and I discovered something. My parents are right after all about what they've been telling me for years. You can't put food on the table, clothe yourself, or pay your bills with a rock and roll collection. So basically that's what I did then, that's what I'm doing now. Ended up selling my 1966 Beatles blow-up dolls. It cost me $125 for 85. My Sgt. Pepper CD, a Beatles metal tray, a Beatles tapestry, LPs, 45s, and more. Of course, you never get your money back for what you spent, but it ain't fair, nothing. I left about $3,500 in debt due to crack cocaine before I became responsible. So, the first month my new resident was Fab in Panama City, and more interesting to follow. In July of '88, I was in for another rude awakening. This month, I could not only sing Just Like Starting Over, but also Cleanup Time and Cold Turkey. The first 2 weeks in July found me high. You would think that after the 7 months of a hard day's night, for the first 2 weeks, I wouldn't have any reason to get loaded. For some strange reason, I found myself a day tripper for the first 2 weeks this month. After all this time, I can only think of 3 possible reasons I ended up on this long drug run. 1, all the stress and craziness since last October had finally got to me. Quite often I have delayed mental reactions and emotional reactions. 2, I didn't believe or want to accept that I was an addict alcoholic. Denial is our #1 problem with practicing alcoholics. The Beatles coffee cup. 3, I quit going to the meetings a few weeks ago, which can kill you, and it's probably a little of the 3. I'm thinking, hey, I got a place to stay. What possibly could go wrong? Don't say that. The first thing I did was not following the advice of others in recovery. I returned to my girlfriend's house, and I was hoping she wouldn't be a cold fish or cock tease like she had before. All 3 of my addictions were running full speed ahead. During the visit, she was actually acting like a normal female. Because she had flipped out on the LSD earlier, I said I would never dose with her again. I seemed I'd forgotten that when I returned to Hollywood on July 1st, '88. I went there with one purpose in mind. Today I ended up buying 16 hits of LSD. 16. I hadn't done that for a long time. Normally, this would have lasted me for weeks or even months. This time, I took 1 hit a day for the next 11 days. On 2 days, I ended up dropping 2. This insanity put me on a helter-skelter slide going around and around. Then I'd come crashing down to the ground. This wouldn't happen until a few days later. Taking 12 hits of acid in 2 weeks is not advisable. That is, if you want to function at all in so-called reality. Besides returning to Hollywood, a very special radio event was occurring. Radio Express here in LA was broadcasting the Monterey Pop Festival from June '67. We had almost gone up there in April of '88 when we covered 6 states in 2 weeks, but John said no. So I was imagining Kathy and I were probably as loaded as some of those who were at the concert. And I was thinking about all those people who had passed away, who had performed there. We were enjoying listening to this on the radio. We were probably in the same cosmic conscious state as they were at the event. Over the 2 weeks, there were only 3 events I somewhat recall. Every day, I was either drunk, loaded, or both. The 3rd and 4th of July saw Kathy and I repeating the same events of last year. Went to go see Wild Child at the Whiskey Go-Go Doors Band. Then flew over to Santa Monica and saw the fireworks at 5 a.m. And then we flew over to Venice. On the 13th of July, we attended a Grateful Dead celebration. And today, by chance, is the sad anniversary 23 years ago when Jerry Garcia passed away, and also a major event that got me thinking about, okay, are you going to stay sober or are you going to keep playing this game? I discovered that we weren't that far away from Recovery Club, which will soon become a hang-up. I'm having a wild, long 2-week party. At the club, I was also seeing 2 of my favorite hippie bands, Halfway Home and Purple Turtles, which became 2 of my favorite LA bands. It's July 14th, '88. For the past 2 weeks, I've been bombed every day. I had taken 12 hits of LSD. I drank more than I can remember. And to say it at the least, I was totally out of control. Perhaps this could be the last time. I wouldn't want to repeat it. Living on the edge is fine some of the time. However, it's not when you want it. You're only a few steps away from falling off the edge. The following couple of days, I can only remember in the dream state or in a blackout. This is only according to the notes I had written down at the time. The afternoon of the 14th of July, I was home. I barely recall calling one of the alcohol treatment centers after drinking some more beer. They told me to pour the rest of the beer down the kitchen drain, which I believe I did. By this time, I wasn't only drinking my own beer, but my roommates as well. My roommate's case came handy as well. I couldn't stop. I had crossed the invisible line. I could no longer control the disease. And everyone who is a drug addict or an alcoholic will probably cross the line at some point if they don't get into recovery beforehand. It goes for most people. I somehow managed to call my friend John, who was 50 miles away, visiting his girlfriend. While waiting for him to arrive, I'm calling different hospitals to see which one I could check into. Most of what was happening wasn't making much sense. I'm so glad my roommate wasn't been home, because they would have been hell on earth. Even worse. John comes flying over to the apartment, speeding all the way. He finds me totally out of it and hard to understand. To this day, how I got my suitcase down from the closet, packed with my clothes, Walkman tapes, and medicine, I will never know. John might have hooked me up, I don't know. I had overdosed. John found me a hospital. He drove me some 25 miles away. As we were driving up to the entrance, I barely noticed a large sign on the road that said, Psychiatric Hospital. Now what have I got myself into? What's my roommate going to think? I'm thinking, Manny, what the hell is going to happen to me? Looking back at it now, I see it as my higher power intervening to get me in recovery and save my life. Perhaps I should have been committed to one of those rehab places many years ago. My opinion of these hospitals was from the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This hospital wasn't like that at all. I discovered they had a psychiatric ward, adolescent ward, and a chemical dependency OCD ward. I was in the latter one. It was my first time in a hospital like this, and at first I said 3 times. When I started sniffing glue at 13 and paint, I had no way of knowing I ended up in a place like this. I had no way of knowing when I first took that first joint in March '79, at 27, I would have been out of control for 15 years. I ended up signing the papers and back out. After I returned to normal, the realities would scare me. I could have signed up for electric shock or anything and not known it. That would be a wake-up call. Give me a sec. For the next 30 days, I'd be an inpatient, scared to death. My roommate and friends were worried but sick about me. The first 4 days are still a total blank. I'd end up going through a very tough detox. I think they put me on Librium for a few days, I'm not sure. There's not a whole lot they can do about an LSD overdose. I was also drinking and smoking weed at the time, so there's a difference between cocaine and LSD, weed, and alcohol withdrawal. Most of the time I attend meetings. These 30 days are from my hospital journal. I'm doing good to know what day of the week it is. Not surprisingly, I found myself in a lot of pain. I was crying a lot inside and out. After not being able to cry for a long time, it felt really freeing. I was also trying to be honest with myself and others. Getting better all the time can really hurt. Cold turkey has got me on the run. Slowly I'm learning the ways and hows of the recovery 12-step program. I must be honest, open, and willing to do whatever is required, and that's still the same today, 30 years later. My first roommate in the hospital just happened to be a Beatles fan, and a fellow hippie. He was also still heavily into the 60s music. So we had a lot of fun listening to the Beatles and Monterey Pop Festival tapes that snuck in with me. Over the last 9 years of using LSD, I had been having occasional flashbacks. My worst flashback so far happened here in the hospital during my first 5th day clean. Breakfast in the first 2 meetings on the 19th went quite well. Then suddenly, I totally flipped out. Out of nowhere, I became that scared little boy again that was being punished. I was very frightened. I was so glad that I was in the hospital at the time. A week after my admittance, I knew that I was totally out of control. I'm now riding this very severe roller coaster. When I would get very upset, my positive outlet was to run outside the hospital. I'd run until could no longer move. I did end up falling down a couple of times. The longer I stayed clean, the more John's song Isolation became a reality. I was feeling like no one could understand or relate to my sexual, emotional, mental, or physical abuse I had endured. To the point I feel that way today, but on July 22nd, I had my next breakthrough. Over the next 8 days, I had written a letter to my parents. It would be the angriest one I can come up with. In the psychodrama class, I would read it. It was a safe way to release one's feelings against the person who you thought had caused you harm. My emotions at first were having a hard time connecting with the letter. Eventually I broke through and it became became a primal scream therapy. Scream. Afterwards, I felt more liberated. I knew exactly what John Yoko had experienced during the early 70s session with Dr. Janoff. Today I listened to John's Plastic Ono Band and the song Cold Turkey over and over and over. Excuse me. What came out of my first poem is that with recovery. It reveals a lot. July 22nd, 88. Drugs, cold turkey. Ow. Drugs, cold turkey is really hell. In the end, I will be low. I've become an alcoholic and drug abuser. They both lied to me and said my life would be more amusing. Drugs and alcohol, you've tried to destroy me. I'm crying for you to be set free. You've been destroying my heart, mind, and soul. Ow. I found that abusing you really isn't cool. Drugs, you tried to cut me off from my higher power. I hate what you've done to me. You made my life like a lemon, very sour. Cold turkey surely is a nightmare time, but drinking and doing drugs is a more harmful crime. The pain and feelings tear at my insides. For your alcohol and drugs is your final ride. I wish I knew nothing about the way you can make me feel. Now I'm getting off you so I can be healed. I hope I can help someone else to avoid believing your wicked tricks. When someone starts abusing you, they're really licked. I was told you can give me the answers to our problems in the universe. I say you have nothing to offer but a curse. All you have to offer are a bunch of lies. You're not going to control me anymore. It's my life again. It hurts going cold turkey. Getting clean and sober is worth it in the end. Thankfully, I do not have to get off all those by myself. I have God, friends, rock and roll, and more to help pull me through this distress. Goodbye, you alcohol and you damn drugs. All you've done is made my life a mess. July 26th, saw me experiencing another severe flashback. This was even worse than the one I had the day before, a few days before. Throughout the night before, strange things were happening. It began with an erotic dream with no physical response. Then I thought we were having an earthquake. Shortly afterwards, I could have sworn there was someone in my room who was trying to kill me. I tried to scream, but couldn't. Everything around me was looking very funny. I've yet to figure out how I managed to get dressed and make it out to the lobby. I think it's around 4:30 in the morning. I somehow make it to the CD room a few yards away. Then I walk across the room to the couch. The hallways in the room seem to be topsy-turvy. Have you ever seen the walls melt? Walking in the hallway was like being in a boat in the middle of a bad storm. A few minutes later, while on the couch, I felt like an 11-year-old boy who was frozen in fear. My attempt to close my eyes and sleep was of little avail. After some time, I was able to get an hour nap. It's around 7 a.m., time for breakfast. Everything still looked a little out of whack. Thankfully, by noon, I was okay, but wiped out. Never before had a flashback lasted so long. After experiencing this, I would have to wonder, seriously, if the LSD had destroyed my mind for good. Ow. The following day saw me celebrating my best birthday ever. However, it also became a pity party. Here I was in the chemical CD ward in the hospital celebrating my 35th birthday. 2 years ago, I was with my friend having a high Fab Beatles party. And last year, Kathy and I were at the Grateful Dead show at the Anaheim Stadium, flying high on Lucy Airlines. Or I call it LSD, Utopian Airlines. Now I find myself a year later in the hospital because I had taken too many trips on drugs and alcohol and been on that airline once too often. At the Grateful Dead concert, I was flying, I was flying high on LSD, and I had taken 2 hits that day. I was actually praying to come down. Now, a year later, I was praying I could stay off the drugs and alcohol. My word of change in 1 year can make. Ding dong, out with the old, bringing new. On my birthday in '88, I had 12 days clean and sober, which was the first in a long time. I'm making a full run effort to stay clean and get my head screwed on straight again. I'm also petrified because things are so new and strange. Could I learn how to live clean and sober again? Will I lose what's left in my mind in the process? How does one walk around with so much pain without any substances or help to ease them? To begin with, I don't like birthdays or holidays all that much, and that has not changed. That's very little, they're very hard to deal with. A psychodrama session was held that morning. Another kind of intervention. The session dealt with my parents fighting with each other on how to raise me, and about what I had to do to get their attention while growing up. In the hospital, was an elderly man named Nelson who could play my dad perfectly. Sometimes these sessions got old too real. A lot of pain and feelings were dealt with. When the heavy-duty meeting ended at lunchtime, I walked outside feeling a bit drained. In the hallway was a nurse, and she told me I had some visitors out in the hallway. I looked around the window, and I couldn't believe it. My parents and brother Dan had arrived to surprise me on my birthday. I hadn't seen my brother for many years. At first, I was scared and I wanted to run. Nelson gave me a push and I proceeded down the hallway. The closer I got to the lobby door, the more scared I became. I'm worried about what are they going to think because I'm in a place like this. I told myself it's time to stop running and deal with this, them, and the numerous issues. At least I was in a safe place to do it in. My fears would soon go away. They'd be replaced with overwhelming joy. The next 6 hours were extremely happy ones. They were totally fulfilling and completely fantastic. My brother had flown in from Alabama and my parents from Phoenix. They all drove across the very hot desert to give me a surprise party. The hospital also helped to set this up for me, and I'm very grateful for it. Not only was I surprised, I was more like in a state of shock. After meeting the family in the lobby, I walked them through the hospital before going out to the picnic area. And the 2 photos you'll see with me and my brother, and I think one by Dad. I was in a total state of shock, to be honest. I can't believe this is actually happening. They had never seen me in California since I moved there in '82. Before lunch, we all held hands and started to pray together. Barriers were starting to break down and I started to cry. The only time I ever recall crying in front of them was when I was being punished or at a funeral. There was a feeling that after 20 years we finally became a family again. I had been praying for this day for so very long. Before I checked into the hospital, I made a comment at one of the meetings. It was, "There's a very large cake and it represents the problems." I felt I was only dealing with the icing of the cake. I wanted to get down into it. Here at the hospital, I was finally able to do that. One thing I discovered quite to my surprise, but I wanted a close family after all. During most of my life, I wanted to crap on the whole thing. Another scenario is there's an onion, and the outside gets peeled. The longer you stay cleaning this over, the closer you get to the middle. Throughout the day, many apologies and forgiveness were spread all around. I proceeded to tell them from here on out I would try the best of my ability to be honest with them, with myself, and with others. What we discovered was that we didn't really know each other. So today was beginning to end that problem. The question is, for how long? We all hugged each other and cried together. Words can't describe the release I felt after all these years of intense pain. I can't even remember my parents crying in front of me or with me. A major brick wall had been partially that I built up came crashing down. To me, this is almost as important as the soon-to-be destroyed, hideous, burning wall. For once, I felt loved and accepted. All of us felt a real freeing experience. We discovered a lot about each other that day. Truly, today was a new beginning and a time of discovery. I found out my dad didn't know his dad all that well. Yes, I miss my dad. He doesn't recall hearing the words "I love you" from my grandfather until he was 21. My mom was abused by her parents, especially her dad. So they could only raise my brothers and I with the best with that they knew how. We tend to raise our kids from the experiences we had growing up. The dysfunctional family line keeps getting passed down from one generation to the next. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as a perfect family or parents. Everyone has his or her problem to put up with, so I quit blaming my parents. Their upbringing wasn't as stable either. My mom told me that the reason that she overprotected me is because she thought I was going to die at any minute. This is due to the many illnesses I had growing up. You know what? They're human after all. I've never known what it is to be healthy. So if you talk to your parents like they're humans, you get things darned up. And I've yet to see the functional family they keep measuring the dysfunctional ones against. I discovered where my parents and brothers were about. They're becoming less domineering, and my brother and I got closer. We started becoming friends. At 6 p.m., we all headed to the main building for a family session meeting. I'm feeling so overwhelmed and still wiping the tears away. All of us discovered that at the family meeting, when a member is abusing drugs or alcohol, it affects the entire family. It goes for everybody. I was totally blown away to discover the physical ailments my parents and I shared. And when my mom apologized for turning me on to the painkillers and nerve pills, like years later, I almost fell over. Even though being an active drug addict and alcoholic is a selfish life, the entire family is still codependent to one another. The final big event today was to take my new friend with me to my drug recovery meeting at the hospital. I almost fell out of my chair and I found out my brother was also in recovery. The meeting introduced my parents to the 12-step programs and would also help them to understand the disease of addiction. I shared with pride that next to me was my family. I never thought in a million years that would actually occur. The broken family was being sealed back together. Now, if only things could have continued that way. I was sad to see them leave about 10:30 that night. After this being one of my best days of my life, I sadly didn't want it to end. Since this was such a feeling today, I feel now I can talk to them about anything openly. Before they left, they told me they were proud of me and actually loved me and accepted me, even here at the hospital. You don't know how badly I need to hear that from them. Now comes the biggest challenge. I have to learn how to love and accept myself. After the pulled out of the parking lot, I knew today was a major breakthrough and a God moment. Even while I'm writing and thinking about this 2 years later, when I wrote this, I still find tears wanting to flow. It was a very emotional day. For my birthday, I received a sleeping bag and a couple of smaller items. All the money and material items couldn't replace the healing that God had done today. This really was the first day of the rest of my life. Later, they would call to make sure I was still keeping track of my recovery. For a while, I'd be on cloud 9. Today's events will be brought up again between my parents and I. For the next few days, I did find it quite strange that I actually missed my family. Very weird. The following day found me at one of my recovery clubs. What's so ironic was the fact that it was only a few yards away from one of the places I had overdosed and was having fun at 2 weeks prior. Before entering the hospital, I honestly thought a real alcoholic with those scheduled bums carrying no brown bags with alcohol in it, which I've done too. How wrong could I be? This disease is not choosy. It can and does affect anyone. No matter if you're dirt poor or if you're the richest guy in the world. To stay here in the hospital talking about the disease firsthand, I would find out what the trigger points were, the things that would cause me to use again. They were loneliness, stress, and depression. Strangely, I'm dealing with them today, but I've been in recovery long enough to know what to do or not to do. Don't pick up the first drink or drug. I was warned to really keep my eyes open for halt. Don't get too angry, hungry, lonely, or tired. Denial is the primary reason that the 7 months of meetings hadn't helped before. I kept telling myself I don't have a problem and I could solve it myself. Very few have been able to solve their addiction alone. The longer that I stayed clean and sober, the more I had to deal with feelings and emotions. Some of them have been frozen for many years. Both of them actually scared me. To a point, they still do today. I had a lot of guilt to deal with and needed my self-esteem to be built up. It's a drag to suddenly realize reality what I hadn't done for so long. Dealing with feelings can only make you feel like you want to get drunk or drive one crazy. August 88, my new life was continuing. This one evening, finally, we were able to go out for outside meetings. Who should I run into but my girlfriend? I talked to her briefly over the phone since entering the hospital. I was a little surprised to see her there. She said she was now dating my friend Tony. Oh great, see how fast she dumps me when I stop partying? It's a little upsetting, but now I have more important things to deal with. I'll deal with her later. August the 7th, I was finally able to leave the hospital grounds on my own for 5 hours. John picked me up and we had a very busy afternoon. Having been in security for 3 weeks, I was somewhat scared to now be out. After picking up some photos, I head over to Kathy's apartment. Just so I could pick up some videos and tell her goodbye. We had an informal breakup, and I wanted no reason to return to her place. The question is, how long will I be able to stay apart this time? Ow! Upon my arrival back home, I figured out the bills and paid them. Afterwards, I decided now would be a good time to clean the place out of all the drugs and miscellaneous. Down the toilets went all the painkillers, the weed, and the other the pills. I got so excited I accidentally threw away the Cinequan that I was on. So I was switched to Advil. I found my last weed pipe, tore it up, and chunked it away. For the first time in years, the home and I were both clean. This, of course, didn't count the alcohol my roommate was keeping in the apartment. Before returning to the hospital, John and I stopped at the grocery store. As you all probably know, it's next to impossible to go inside any of them and not have to pass the liquor department. What I honestly felt like doing was destroying every single bottle and can of alcohol that was on display. I wanted to attack the symptom of the problem because of what the alcohol had cost me. To destroy the liquor would have been stupid and would have gotten me a jail term. It's why people drink that's the problem, not what you're on. Alcohol and drugs have already been available. Society must diminish the desire to get loaded. Find an alternative. Then the supply and demand will fall. That's the secret to winning the war on drugs and alcohol. Supply people with decent jobs, housing, support, love, and hope. You can handle a living hell for so long before you need a way to find escape. One sec. August the 12th, 88. I returned to freedom in a completely new reality. This wasn't only a physical freedom, but one from drugs and alcohol. For the first time in ages, I was completely free from them. Now I had to learn how to live clean and sober. This will require a 180-degree turnaround. After using on a regular basis since September of '74, almost everything was new to me. In order to keep from using again, I attend the meetings at least twice a day, sometimes even more. For a while, I felt I was actually living at the recovery club. At least there I was somewhat safe and I couldn't use. I'm determined to stay in recovery. At least, this routine would continue for quite a while. I found myself too scared to live and too scared to die. This is the first time in 15 years I was totally clean and sober for a month. If you told me then I would now be coming up for 23 years, I would say you're out of your freaking mind. Only by the grace of God. I couldn't go 23 days. They told me to stay away from slippery places and people because they will lead you to using. There were times in the hospital I wanted to run away so I can escape the pain. I didn't do it because I realized that I'd been doing this for most of my life. One can only live in the fast lane for so long before they crash and burn. Besides, how do you really run away from yourself? It probably wouldn't be a far-fetched if I said the hospital saved my life and my ass. Of course, God, the Beatles, and the 60s tapes also helped. Upon my release, I was surprised to discover what all I had brought in the hospital a month before. I still had little or no memory, can't read. My graduation gift was a gold medallion with the Serenity Prayer. A praying hand, a reminder to live one day at a time. Right now, it's a few minutes at a time. I'm still wearing it quite often 7 years later. As John and I are pulling out of the parking lot, I'm feeling very frightened, and you're supposed to be. Later I discovered that was a normal way to feel upon release. I'm going back in the hectic world, unsure of how I can make it clean. The hospital gave me a new beginning. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now I knew why I couldn't stop using a month before. I also know the disease of alcohol and addiction is always at the doorstep, ready to come back and kick my ass again. And that is true for Buddy. Take one is too many, 1,000 never enough. Graciously, my first sponsor happened to be a Beatles fan, as well as someone in recovery. I needed to start off with someone I could relate to. The first night of freedom was spent a sober dance. I actually managed to have a blast. That's the first time in eons. The next 2 months, I would continue with the aftercare with the hospital. The trip back to the hospital, the trip back to the apartment was a little tense at first. I could no longer drink with my roommate like I had done before. I had made every effort to explain to them what his disease was, but some people don't listen or don't want to know. I can't help but notice the amount of beer that's still in the apartment. The turkey actually had the nerve to bring home a case of my favorite beer, which is Budweiser. He thought he'd give me a welcome home party. No. I told him I'd love to, but it would just send me back into the hospital, or possibly even death. Joey, my roommate tried a few times and finally gave up. This disease of alcoholism doesn't stop with one of anything. Talk about stress and temptation? Well, try that one thing. Try being in recovery living with a practicing alcoholic. Upon my release, everyone seemed to have a plan on how I should run my life and run my recovery. The hospital plans me to put most of my things back in the storage, move back up north to the drug rehab farm for the next 6 months. This didn't go well with me. My parents wanted me to come back to Phoenix and check into a Christian recovery center. I did check them out a few weeks later, and I felt that everyone wanted me to work. Everyone wants to work my program. I can't do that. Surprisingly, by August '88, Kathy, Roberta, whom friend who passed away, and I were all in recovery. The 3 blind mice had their eyes open and were now in recovery. I never thought that would happen. All of us were trying to get our lives rearranged. For those of you who have read the book, of course you haven't read, you'll notice the many causes I've been involved with. You can tell the progression of the disease, eventually led me in the hospital. I can honestly say I'm still supporting most of the causes I was involved with as stand today in 2018. I came to realize I can't fix all the problems that are around us. I can just do my part to try to make a difference. To acquire real world peace, we must acquire it within ourselves first. I had to get my own house in order. This is a full-time job then. It's a full-time job now. 8 days after I got out of the hospital, I flew back to Phoenix, and I needed a week to readjust to reality. A day later, I started attending meetings here in Phoenix, which seemed really weird. This would be the first time in 11 years I wouldn't be getting loaded here. My new addiction became the meetings and recovery. Thus far, better than the other addictions. As I was traveling over the city, there were constant reminders of how far I used to go to get loaded. Maybe God wanted to remind me that the partying should have killed me a long time ago. without a doubt, I know I'm a walking miracle. Someone told me, and I'll tell you, chase your recovery as bad as you chase the disease. What's at stake is your life, your sanity, and everything else. I did check into various recovery centers in Phoenix. However, I still didn't want to leave California. I did check into the Christian Recovery Center, and they wanted me to live with 11 other guys in this dorm. With my sexual compulsion running rampant, and it was too much reminder of the Bible school that strangely fell apart also on August 9th in '74, same day as Watergate. I ended up having my first nervous breakdown. The second one was after John Lennon got murdered. I surely did not want to repeat this scenario again. I had to find my own way to stay sober. I heard the following comment in one of the meetings, and it still holds true today. The church and God saved my soul, but the meeting saved my ass. Before I checked into there, I would be back in the hospital or out there using again. I did check other places in Phoenix. I said, I can't do this. I flew back to California. Okay, September, real quick, saw me at my biggest challenge so far in my recovery. I came close to losing everything. I was trying to help this homeless guy, and my roommate, being a jerk he was, kicked him out at 3 in the morning, and I damn near killed him. He happened to have 2 guns with him, and I wanted to use the gun against him. When you first start dealing with feelings and emotions, they get out of control, and I try not to let myself get that angry again. And by the way, I do not have and will not have a gun. I nearly lost my sobriety, my life, and my apartment. After a while, I had to let it go and move on to my recovery. Ow. Anyway, over the next, from September '88 until the end of '89, early '90, I ended up in 2 more drug rehabs. You see, this disease doesn't stop. One day, I said, to hell with it, more than one, and we started drinking a quart of whiskey a night, and smoking weed and anything else, and ended up in another hospital, made it 6 months, and made it in 3rd hospital. Then by that time, January '94, I was thrown over here due to the earthquake in Phoenix, and Jerry Garcia died today, August 9th, in '95. I won't tell you what about my last encounter. That's not important. I had to decide, okay, I've been in recovery for 7 years. Either you're going to get your act together and take this seriously, or go blow your brain out. I felt I had 2 choices growing up. I can take the drugs and alcohol, or check out. It wasn't until I got into recovery I was given a 3rd choice. With the grace of God and the 12-step program and the help of others, one moment at a time, one day at a time, whatever it takes, I can say no to the alcohol and the drugs and stay clean and sober. So, if you have a family member or if you're in recovery, it's going to take time. I've been helping others online deal with their recovery while I'm in the biggest part of my life. I decided to share with you my first time out in recovery, and I was in the hospital. And right now, in 2018, just turned 65. I almost 23 years clean and sober by the grace of God. And the last 6 years have been beyond description regarding the losses that I've gone through and have to deal with every single day. Had all this been going on 15, 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So I'm hoping in some way this helps someone else who's in out recovery or out there still using. If you trust God and work the program and work the steps, anything, excuse me, is possible. So take care. Feel free to comment. For all the subscribers, make sure you hit the bell, which I just found out. So when I'm able to get a new video on, which isn't very often, but in a few moments I have to go around the heat and go spend money I don't have for more medication. I could say this is the strangest life I've ever known. Many people in recovery can say they're grateful to be addict, alcoholics, or in recovery. Even after all this time, I cannot say that. I would give anything if I didn't know what it's like to be comfortably numb. However, since this started at 10 years old, there's not much I can do about it. So anyway, I'm still here for a purpose. Hopefully this will help someone else. Despite the physical, mental, and emotional pain, God is keeping me sober, and I'm carrying on. Take care. Feel free to subscribe and to comment. Take care. I gotta find it.